I was 17 when my whole life got turned upside down because I dared to tell the truth. My parents loved to brag about being a good Christian family and how our home was built on honesty and values, but apparently that only applied when the truth didn't make them look bad. One night, at a church gathering, I slipped and mentioned something my dad had been doing behind the scenes. Nothing huge, nothing criminal, but it was shady enough to crack their perfect image. Within hours, the whispers started. By the time we got home, my parents were furious. Not at him for doing it, but at me for opening my mouth. Their anger boiled into screaming matches, accusations, and finally the words I never thought I'd hear: pack your things. If you can't keep this family together, you can't live in this house. Just like that, I was shoved out of the only home I'd ever known, because I told the truth. I didn't plan on revenge at first, but once I saw the lengths they'd go to protect their lie, I knew I couldn't just walk away quietly. My name's Daniel. I'm 17, a high school junior, and until a year ago, I thought my life was pretty normal. I lived in a 2-story house in a cookie-cutter suburban neighborhood where every lawn looked the same and every family waved from their driveways. My dad was a deacon at our church, my mom ran the women's Bible study, and every Sunday morning we lined up like little soldiers, me, my younger sister, my parents, all smiles, shaking hands, handing out baked goods, playing the part of the perfect family. But behind those picture-perfect Christmas cards and Instagram-worthy family dinners, our home was a pressure cooker. My parents weren't just strict, they were obsessed with appearances. I wasn't allowed to hang out with certain kids because their parents didn't go to church. My grades had to be flawless, not because they cared about my future, but because it looked good when they bragged to other parents. Every move I made, every word out of my mouth, was measured against the question, how will this look for us? It sounds exhausting because it was. There was no space for mistakes, no room for being human. My dad had this saying he loved to repeat whenever I stepped even a little out of line: in this family, perception is reality. Translation: it doesn't matter what's true, what matters is what people think is true. The irony? He lived by that motto a little too well. I started noticing things around 15. Dad's business trips weren't always business. He had a construction company that did odd jobs around town, and I overheard him bragging once on the phone about cutting corners on a church renovation and pocketing the leftover money. He said it like it was some brilliant strategy, not straight-up fraud. My mom wasn't any better. She kept a secret cash fund that she guilt-tripped church members into donating to for mission work, but most of it went into redecorating our kitchen. They thought I was too naive to catch on, but when you grow up walking on eggshells, you become good at listening. You notice every little inconsistency, every whispered argument, every check that doesn't add up. By the time I was 17, I knew the truth: our family wasn't a beacon of faith or integrity. We were a brand. And behind that brand was a whole lot of hypocrisy. The weird thing is, I never thought I'd be the one to blow it up. I'd spent years keeping my head down, biting my tongue, playing my role. I knew better than to challenge them. But then came the night of the church gathering, the night everything changed. It was supposed to be another routine event. My mom had baked 3 pies, my dad had ironed his favorite suit, and I'd been roped into setting up chairs in the fellowship hall. Same as always, except that night, people were buzzing about money. The church had been raising funds for a new community center, and donations were pouring in. Everyone was congratulating Dad on his honest leadership and his company's role in managing the renovations. And me? I was standing there, balancing a plate of brownies, listening to people gush about what a good, godly man my father was. And maybe it was the exhaustion, or the bitterness, or maybe I just slipped up, but I laughed. Out loud. One of the elders turned to me, eyebrows raised. "Something funny, Daniel?" And before my brain caught up with my mouth, I said it. "Yeah, just thinking about how Dad told his crew to swap cheaper materials on the last job. Saved himself a few $1,000s. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. My dad's face froze. My mom's smile cracked. And just like that, the perfect family facade started to tremble, had been hit with a freeze spell. I could hear the soda machine humming at the back and the squeak of Mrs. Dalton's orthopedic shoes somewhere near the dessert table, but right around me, dead quiet. Dad's smile flattened so hard it looked like a paper cut. Mom's lashes fluttered fast, the way they do when she's picking which mask to put on. "Daniel," Dad said, voice syrupy sweet for the audience, "that's a colorful interpretation of a supply delay." Someone coughed. Someone else whispered. I watched the whisper leave their lips, hop to another pair of ears, and then another, like a gossip relay race. Elder Mark's face did a slow-motion frown, the kind where the eyebrows do a courtesy check with each other first. "Swapping materials isn't an interpretation," I said, my mouth somehow still moving even though my brain was screaming abort abort abort. You told Gary to use off-brand drywall and cheaper sealant. You joked about how the church wouldn't know the difference. Gary, a guy from Dad's crew, was 2 tables over, suddenly extremely interested in his mac and cheese. His wife stared at him with her mouth open, like he'd just sprouted horns. Mom's hand landed on my shoulder with a grip that said, "Smile or die." "Teenagers," she trilled to the cluster forming around us. "You know how they are, always dramatizing for attention." I smiled. I smiled the way you smile when someone is grinding your shoulder blade into dust. "Sure," I said. Must have imagined the group chat, too. Dad's eyes flickered. Only for a second, but I caught it. Because there was a group chat. He'd added me by accident months ago when he was trying to send me chore reminders. I muted it and forgot, until the night he texted, "Run the numbers with the BX200 sealant, not the 500. No one will know. Screenshots don't care about family branding." I didn't say that out loud. Not yet. I just let the implication hang there like a storm cloud over the buffet line. Across the room, Sister Amelia's jaw tightened, and that told me everything about how this was landing. "We'll talk at home," Dad hissed, low enough only I could hear. The sweetness was gone. His knuckles were white around his coffee cup. He pivoted, turned to the nearest elder, and launched into a preemptive sermon about the challenges of raising teenagers in a hostile culture. People nodded like dashboard bobbleheads. A few darted apologies at me without making eye contact, those sorry not sorry looks adults use when they're prioritizing comfort over truth. I busied myself with stacking plates and pretending not to feel the burn of 50 eyes. 2 sophomore girls from youth group, the ones who worship my mom like a Pinterest board, whispered behind their hands. One of them giggled. My face went hot. If embarrassment were a sport, I'd have broken a state record. When we finally made our exit, the night air felt cooler than it should have for late May. The cicadas were screaming, and the church lot lamps flickered in a way that made the asphalt look like a bad TV signal. We walked in a tight little line toward the car, and I swear I could hear the hiss of conversations snapping shut as we passed. The second the doors closed, Dad's hand smacked the dash. "What did you say?" "Exactly what you said," I shot back. My voice surprised me, steady, not shaking. I didn't lie. Mom twisted around from the front seat, pearls glowing ghostly in the dash light. "You humiliated us," she whispered, as if whispering could keep God from hearing. "Do you understand what you've done to your father's reputation? To mine?" "I told the truth," I said. "That's your whole thing, right? Truth?" Dad put the car in drive so hard the transmission whined. He didn't speed, but the way he gripped the steering wheel made it feel like the car itself was bracing for impact. "You think you're a hero? You think exposing family business makes you righteous?" He laughed, a short, hard sound. "Perception is reality, Daniel. And you just turned us into a spectacle." I stared out the window as storefronts slid by, nail salon, pawn shop, diner with the neon coffee cup blinking tiredly. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, "Hey, is it true your dad skimmed off the Reno?" Another buzz. "Dude, what happened?" Another. "Your mom said you're acting out. You okay?" I turned the screen face down. We stopped at a red light, and in the reflected glow I caught my own face, too old, somehow, for 17. I thought of the group chat, the invoices I'd seen left on the printer, the prayer circles where my mother tugged tears out of ladies like weeds. I thought of the way the congregation had looked at me like I'd tracked mud into a museum. When we pulled into the driveway, Dad killed the engine but not the silence. The porch light clicked on with its usual cheer, like the house didn't know it was about to become a courtroom. He turned to me, voice soft in a way that felt wrong. "Inside," he said. "Now." I opened the door, stepped into the slice of light on the front walk, and knew, without one doubt left, that tonight I wasn't walking into a home. I was walking into a verdict. And they had already decided I was guilty. The door had barely shut before Mom started. "Take off your shoes," she snapped, like soles on hardwood were the biggest sin in the room. Her voice echoed off the entryway mirror, the one where she checks her smile before church. Tonight her reflection looked like a mask left too long in the sun. Dad didn't bother with rituals. He tossed his keys onto the console, missed, and let them clatter to the floor. "Phone," he said, palm out. I held onto it. "No." Something in his face flared. "You don't say no to me in my house." I should have been scared. I was, in the way you're scared before a storm hits, but anger does weird math. It adds spine you didn't know you had. "I'm not deleting anything." Mom stepped between us, palms out, the peacemaker routine. We just want to see what you've been exposed to. The word exposed slithered out like she was talking about a virus. You mean the truth? Her eyes flashed. You don't know what you're talking about, she said. Your father manages budgets. Sometimes choices have to be made to keep projects within scope. By lying about materials? By pocketing the difference? Dad barked a laugh. You think you're an accountant now? You read a few numbers and suddenly you're the prophet at the gate? Prophets usually tell the hard truth, I said, and if my mouth had a survival instinct, it had clocked out for the night. He closed the distance in one step. Not touching me, but close enough that I could smell coffee and the aftershave he wears to every meeting. You embarrass this family in front of people who trust us, he said. Do you know what that does to our witness? To our work? It shouldn't do anything if you didn't do what I said, I shot back. If I'm lying, show me. Show me the invoices. Show me the materials list. Mom's mouth thinned into a white line. We don't owe you explanations. Exactly, Dad said. What we owe is protection of our family name. You just took that and dragged it through the mud. He leaned in, and his voice dropped to a quiet, dangerous place. Fix it. How? I asked. By lying? By apologizing, he said. Tonight. You are going to text Elder Mark and the rest of leadership and tell them you were confused, emotional, and that you misheard a sarcastic comment I made. You are going to say you're ashamed of your disrespect. He held out his hand again. Phone. My heartbeat was everywhere, ears, throat, fingertips. I won't, I said. I'm not apologizing for telling the truth. The room went still. The clock over the mantel ticked like a metronome for disaster. In the hallway, our old dog, Molly, lifted her head and thumped her tail once, then tucked it under like even she knew to keep her head down. Mom's voice came out cold. You will not wreck our ministry because you want to feel superior for 5 minutes, Daniel. This family has sacrificed for that church. No, I said, heat rising to my face. You sacrificed the church for this family. For your image. Dad's hand slammed the console, keys jumping like startled fish. That's it, he said, breath hard. Pack your things. It took a second to register. What? You heard me. Pack a bag. If you can't respect this family, you can't be part of it. There it was, the line people throw around jokingly in teen dramas, the hollow threat parents use to scare kids straight. Except my dad's eyes had gone flat, and my mom wasn't protesting. She was just watching me, calculating, like she was weighing donations against my existence. You're serious, I said. Mom lifted her chin. We can't have rebellion in this house. It will spread. I'm not mold, I said. My voice cracked, which felt so unfair, like my body was siding with them. Bag, Dad said, pointing toward the hall. 15 minutes. I walked past them on wooden legs, down the hallway lined with framed Bible verses and family photos. There was one of me at 12, eyes bright, holding a trophy from some middle school science fair Dad never attended because he had a board meeting. Another with all of us in coordinated flannel, laughing on cue for a photographer Mom hired for Christmas cards. I could feel those glossy smiles watching me as I opened my bedroom door. The room smelled like detergent and the faint citrus of my cheap body wash. Posters on the wall, homework stacked in a lopsided pile, the hoodie I lived in thrown over my chair. This was my entire world, a shoebox filled with small normal things. I pulled my old duffel from under the bed and started stuffing it. Jeans, t-shirts, socks, the hoodie, my debate binder, the envelope with tips from my part-time job at the diner. My hands shook. I wasn't noble, I wasn't brave. I was a kid putting his life into a bag because 2 adults decided honesty was contagious. In the doorway, Mom hovered, arms crossed. Take only what you need, she said. We'll discuss the rest when you're ready to be reasonable. I'm taking my birth certificate and social, I said without looking up. And my laptop. She hesitated, then nodded once, crisp. Fine. But the phone stays. We pay for it. I clutched it tighter. You can shut it off if you want. It's still mine. She reached for it. I stepped back. We stood there, ridiculous, 2 magnets fighting pull, until footsteps in the hall announced Dad. He didn't reach. He just looked at me like I was a stain he couldn't scrub. You have 10 minutes, he said. After that, the door locks. The air thinned. I swallowed and shoved the last of my life into the bag. I slid the folder with my documents into the laptop sleeve, zipped it, and slung the duffel over my shoulder. In the mirror above my dresser, my face looked pale, eyes rimmed red. Not a hero. Just a kid who tripped over the truth and landed on the wrong side of a line. When I stepped back into the hall, Dad held the front door open like a doorman with a grudge. Night pressed against the threshold, cool and wide and roaring with cicadas. Mom's voice followed me to the porch, soft and poisonous. "When you're ready to apologize, we'll talk." I paused on the top step, duffel strap biting into my shoulder. "When you're ready to be honest," I said, "I'll listen." Dad shut the door. The deadbolt clicked. And the house, my not home, went silent behind me. The night didn't feel real at first. I stood on the porch with my duffel bag biting into my shoulder, staring at the front door like it might swing back open. It didn't. The porch light buzzed, moths thudding against the bulb, and I realized, that was it. 17 years in that house, gone with one slam door and a lock sliding into place. I didn't cry. Not right away. My body was too busy doing practical math. Where do I go? Who do I call? How much cash do I have? My wallet had $62 from diner tips. My bank card? Useless, because I knew Mom would freeze the account the second she remembered it existed. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. "Drop the phone on the porch. We'll mail your records when you're ready to repent." I turned the screen dark and shoved it deep in my pocket. They could cut service, but they weren't taking it out of my hand. I walked down the driveway, sneakers crunching gravel. Every house on the street looked identical: porch lights, manicured lawns, little flags staked in the grass. I wondered if anyone inside had heard the yelling. If they had, they'd stayed behind their curtains, safe in their own facades. The first person I called was Ryan, my best friend since middle school. He answered on the second ring, his voice thick with video game static. "Yo, what's up?" I said, swallowing hard. "You still awake?" "Yeah. Why? Can I crash at your place?" There was a pause, then the sound of him muting his headset. "What happened?" "My parents kicked me out." I hated how small my voice sounded. 10 minutes later, Ryan and his older brother pulled up in their dented Honda Civic. I climbed in, duffel wedged between my knees. Ryan's eyes were wide. "Dude, you serious?" "Dead serious." "Over what?" I let out a humorless laugh. "The truth." His brother didn't ask questions, just drove us across town to their split-level house that always smelled faintly of pizza rolls. When we got there, Ryan tossed me a blanket and said, "You can have the couch." He tried to make it sound casual, but I could see it in his face. This was bigger than either of us knew how to handle. Lying there in the dark, ceiling fan clicking above me, the weight finally hit. My chest cracked open, and I cried so hard my ribs hurt. Not just because I was scared, or angry, or homeless in everything but legal terms, but because deep down, I realized they meant it. My parents didn't want me back. Not unless I lied for them. By morning, it got worse. My phone lit up with notifications, my bank account had been locked, my cell plan suspended, and a text from Mom: "Your rebellion has consequences. Don't expect handouts." Ryan's mom, bless her, made pancakes and didn't pry too much. She just patted my hand and said, "Stay as long as you need." It was the first kindness I'd felt in 24 hours, and it nearly undid me all over again. But as I sipped orange juice and tried to act like I wasn't a mess, Ryan leaned over and whispered, "Bro, people are already talking. My mom saw a Facebook post your mom made last night." "What did it say?" I asked. He looked at me with that wince people give when they know you're about to get punched in the gut. "She told everyone you've been acting out, spreading lies, and hanging with the wrong crowd. Said they're heartbroken but they had to protect the family." The orange juice turned sour in my throat. She'd gotten ahead of the story. While I was packing a duffel and crying into a couch pillow, my parents were already rewriting the narrative. And people were believing it. I knew right then, if I didn't fight back, their version of the truth would be the only one anyone remembered. And I wasn't going to let that happen. Morning came with the smell of pancake mix and a low-grade mortification hangover. Ryan's living room had that soft, lived-in quiet, controller cords in a lazy knot, a throw blanket that had definitely seen a golden retriever's entire lifetime, dust motes floating in a sunbeam like lazy snow. I sat up slow, every muscle aware I wasn't home and wouldn't be again anytime soon. Ryan's mom slid a plate onto the coffee table. "Eat." No arguments. She had the kind of voice that brooked zero nonsense and infinite kindness at the same time. I muttered a thank you big enough to choke on and tried not to cry into the syrup. Mom's text blinked on my suspended phone: "Your rebellion has consequences." Cool. So did fraud, presumably. I counted my cash, 62 in the wallet, plus the crinkled tip envelope I'd thrown in my duffel, another 100 and change. It wasn't much, but it looked like oxygen. School felt like walking into a courtroom where my verdict was already printed. Whisper currents met me at the entrance, my name, my parents' names, the church name, like someone had shaken a jar of bees and released it into the hallway. At my locker, Kayla from chemistry sidled up with a look that said she brought popcorn. "So, your mom posted a thing last night." I braced. She turned her phone to me, a Facebook novella with a soft focus family photo at the top. "Pray for our son as he struggles with influences and falsehoods. We made the tough decision to set healthy boundaries until he is ready to accept truth and accountability. Please refrain from gossip." The post had 142 hearts, 63 comments, and exactly one word that mattered to me: falsehoods. Underneath, ladies from church were typing prayers like they were lobbing pearls at a bonfire. "You're such strong parents. We're here for you. Let us know if we can help with the renovations." I tasted metal. "Is any of it true?" Kayla asked, gentle but nosy. "Some," I said. "Not the parts you'd think." I skipped first period and detoured to the counselor's office because some part of my brain remembered a slide from health class about housing instability. Ms. Washington didn't do the fake sympathy face. She offered me a chair and a glass of water, then listened like she was getting paid per second of silence. When I finished, she folded her hands. "You have a right to stay in school," she said. "Even if your living situation is in flux. I can connect you with the district liaison under McKinney-Vento. Bus pass, meal vouchers, help with fees. We'll keep your address off mailers for now. Do you have somewhere safe to sleep?" "For now," I said. My voice snagged on the words. "My friend's couch." "Okay," she said, like okay could be a life raft. "Come see me at lunch. We'll make a plan." I hadn't realized how close I was to unraveling until she said we. It put a plank under my feet. I took the bus pass like a golden ticket and promised myself I wasn't falling apart in the hallway. After last bell, I hustled straight to the diner, because if money was oxygen, I needed a bigger tank. The bell over the door did its tired jingle and the fryers breathed out that grease and onion perfume that had soaked into my soul all sophomore year. Sharon, the senior server who runs the floor like a military campaign, took one look at me and clucked. "You look like you slept in a shoe," she said. "Double shift?" "If you'll let me." She poured coffee into a mug and slid it my way like a sacrament. "You get the specials in counter 10 through 16. I'll float your breaks. And honey?" She leaned in. "Whatever it is, keep your head. People get chatty over pie." They did. Church ladies colonized corner booth 3 like it was the League of Nations. I recognized all of them from Sunday rings: Sister Amelia with her dagger eyes, Mrs. Dalton with the orthopedic shoes, and, like a punchline from the universe, my mother's best friend, Renee, the undisputed queen of sanctimonious sidebars. I ducked behind the espresso machine, pulled shots, and pretended not to exist. By hour 2, I had refills down to muscle memory and my jaw unclenched enough to make jokes with regulars. Sharon slipped me half her tips by accident. I tried to hand it back. She raised an eyebrow so hard I figured arguing would end with me mopping the parking lot at midnight. On break, I sat on a milk crate by the back door, phone on airplane mode because service was dead. Ryan had found a cheap prepaid SIM at a gas station and fronted me $20 to activate it. "Pay me when you're Bezos," he'd said. I set up new passwords, fired off a blanket new number, long story text to the 5 people who weren't currently weaponizing prayer, and uploaded the screenshots from Dad's crew chat to cloud storage. If they came for my phone, they weren't getting my receipts. When I clocked back in, booth 3 was louder. The kind of loud that wants to be overheard. I topped off their decaf and caught a sentence like a hook. "So hard," Renee was saying, patting Sister Amelia's hand. "They've been dealing with his issues for months. Addiction, anger, the whole thing." I felt my face do that frozen calm thing it does right before I go nuclear. Addiction? To what, honesty? Proper cock? Mrs. Dalton clicked her tongue. And to accuse his own father. In church. Renee lowered her voice, which of course made everyone lean in. "Between us, Mark says the finance committee's tightening controls, too many rumors. Your mother told me they're compiling statements from staff. You know, to show a pattern. They have to protect the church." Compiling statements. Pattern. The words landed like heavy furniture in my chest. They weren't just spinning it, they were building a paper trail. On me. I floated back to the kitchen on autopilot and leaned my forehead against the walk-in cooler for 10 seconds because cold helps when you're trying not to throw up and cry simultaneously. Then I took a breath, grabbed the pie server, and went back out like I hadn't just been accused of being a one-man crime wave. By the time the dinner rush ended, my feet were staging a protest march and my tip envelope was thicker. I texted Ms. Washington to confirm our lunchtime plan tomorrow and asked if the liaison could help me figure out a P.O. box. She replied with a thumbs up and a calendar link because she is a wizard. Back at Ryan's, we watched a dumb action movie because my brain needed explosions that weren't personal. His mom folded laundry on the arm of the sofa like a human metronome for normal life. I answered a few "Are you okay" texts from people I trusted and ignored the rest. At midnight, I lay on the couch staring at the ceiling fan and thought about statements. About signatures collected in quiet offices to make a story feel true. The next afternoon at school, I took a long way to English to avoid the youth group cluster that had started treating me like a cautionary tale. Passing the admin office, I caught my name again, my ears traitorous sixth sense for disaster. The door was propped open, and inside, Sister Amelia was talking to the vice principal, her voice pitched sugar sweet. "We're so worried. His poor parents. If you notice any disruptions, please let us know. He's been unstable." Unstable? I looked down at my hands, steady on my backpack straps, and something in me crystallized. They weren't going to stop. They would keep layering stories until the weight of them crushed the truth out of sight. I slipped past before Amelia could see me and made it to class, heart thudding like a drumline. When the bell rang, I didn't move. I opened my notebook instead and made a list with a title that felt like a promise: things I can control. Extra shifts. New number. Backups. Safe adults. Documentation. A plan. That night at the diner, booth 3 was back. Different ladies, same perfume cloud. I brought water, set down menus, and froze. My mother's voice was there, laughing, bright, the way she sounds when she's collecting donations. "We're meeting with leadership Sunday," she said. "Mark wants written accounts. It's a shame, but we have to protect our ministry." "Will the boy apologize?" someone asked. "If he does, we'll consider welcoming him back," Mom said. "But first he has to admit what he's done." Forks chimed on plates. Somewhere behind me, Sharon cursed at the ticket printer and thwacked it with a spoon. I stood there with the pitcher in my hand and understood that I was not just exiled, I was being erased and rewritten in real time. I topped off their waters without speaking. My mother didn't look up. I set the pitcher down, wiped my hands on my apron, and told myself out loud, in the tiny space between the coffee maker and the pie case, "You're not crazy. You're not alone. And you're going to win this." Then, from the corner booth behind me, a voice I recognized but hadn't expected, soft, urgent, barely more than a breath. "Daniel," it said. "Don't turn around. They're lying to you and to everyone else. And I think I can prove it." I froze, water pitcher still in my hand, back turned toward the corner booth. The voice was quiet but steady, and my brain scrambled to put a name to it. Slowly, I set the pitcher down, wiped my hands on my apron, and slid into the empty chair across from the whisperer. It was Mr. Lawson. He wasn't just some random church member, he was basically family furniture. Retired, always in plaid shirts, the guy who handed out peppermints during sermons and fixed the leaky baptismal font for free. My parents adored him, or at least, adored being seen with him. But right now, his face was serious in a way I'd never seen before. "You can't stay here long," he said softly. "Your mother's eyes are like hawks in public. But I had to tell you, what you said the other night. It's not just true. It's worse." I blinked. "Worse how?" He leaned in, breath smelling faintly of coffee. "They've been cooking the books for years. Donations, renovations, even the mission fund. I've seen the records. But they've been covering it with signed statements, letters from staff saying everything is legitimate, that anyone who questions it is unstable." My stomach dropped. "They're already saying that about me." He nodded. "I know. That's why you need to be careful. They're building a case, painting you as a liar, rebellious, even dangerous if they can. It's their way of keeping the community from looking too closely at them." I sat back, trying to keep my face calm while my pulse raced. "How do you know all this?" Mr. Lawson pulled a folded envelope from his jacket and slid it across the table. "Because I was asked to sign one. Your father gave me a statement to back up their story. I refused. And now they've stopped inviting me to leadership meetings." I slid the envelope into my apron pocket without opening it. "What's in here?" "Copies. Bank transfers. Notes. Enough to show you're not making things up." His eyes softened. "I don't know what you'll do with it, son, but don't let them bury you." Before I could ask more, Sharon yelled from the kitchen, "Daniel. Order's up." I turned, and when I looked back, Lawson was already up, leaving cash on the table and disappearing into the night. Back at Ryan's house later, I locked myself in the bathroom under the hum of the fan and tore open the envelope. Inside were half a dozen photocopies, invoices with suspiciously inflated totals, bank slips with amounts siphoned off to consulting, even a handwritten note in my dad's blocky print, "Don't forget, BX200 sealant. Cheaper. Looks fine." I sank onto the edge of the tub, shaking. This wasn't just gossip. This was proof. But proof didn't matter if no one listened, and right now, my parents were 10 steps ahead, painting me as an ungrateful, unstable kid. Every time they posted or whispered, their version spread like mold through the community. Mine? I was one voice, drowned out. The next day at school, I saw it in action. Teachers giving me tight smiles. Classmates snickering. Even Ms. Washington, though kind, looked at me with concern edged in doubt. My parents' story was working. That night, I logged into the diner's free Wi-Fi and backed up every file, screenshot, and photocopy to 3 different cloud drives. I even emailed copies to myself under a new address. Ryan peeked over my shoulder. "You're building a case," he said. "More like a shield," I muttered. "If they want to call me a liar, fine. But if they push too hard, I can push back." Ryan grinned. "You mean revenge?" I looked at the glowing folder labeled Truth on my desktop. "I mean survival. But maybe both." The next Sunday, my parents stood in front of the congregation, smiles plastered on, voices dripping with sorrow as they explained how their rebellious son was struggling and needed prayer. I sat in Ryan's car across the street, laptop open, watching the service live stream. In the chat, hearts and prayers flooded the screen. Everyone bought it. Everyone but me. And in my pocket, I felt the edge of Lawson's envelope pressing against my jeans like a reminder. They thought they'd buried me under lies. But what they didn't know was that I had their shovel. And I was about to start digging. The envelope from Mr. Lawson sat on Ryan's coffee table like a live wire. I spread everything out into neat stacks because neat stacks make panic feel like a project. Invoices on the left. Bank slips in the middle. Handwritten notes on the right, Dad's blocky print glowering up at me like it could crawl off the page and ground me. Step 1, Timeline. I opened a new spreadsheet and typed dates down the left margin. I started with the church's Vision Sunday 2 years back and built forward, pledge drive, renovation start, invoices, the switch to BX200 sealant, the kitchen mission upgrades at my house that lined up a little too perfectly with a consulting fee on a bank slip. Color coding turned chaos into candy, blue for donations, red for expenses, yellow for moments. The page looked like a rainbow had taken a business class. Step 2, Backups. I scanned Lawson's copies at the library because the diner's printer adds gravy to everything and the last thing I needed was a marinara watermark on my evidence. I emailed the scans to 3 accounts with boring names, no more truth_bomb17. I set up a dead man switch on a free service Ryan found. If I didn't check in every 3 days, it would send a packet to a list of people I picked. Paranoid? He asked. Prepared, I said, and clicked confirm. Step 3, Witnesses. I wasn't trying to assemble a pitchfork mob, I just needed people who'd seen what I'd seen. I started with Gary from Dad's crew, the guy who'd studied his mac and cheese like it owed him money the night I slipped. He worked mornings at the hardware store, so I wandered in on my lunch break and found him stacking lumber in L9. "Gary," I said, keeping my voice low. "I'm not here to blow up your life. I just need you to tell me if I'm crazy." He glanced over his shoulder, then back at me. "You're not crazy," he said. "But I got a mortgage. And twins." "I'm not asking you to testify," I said. "Just. If someone asks you straight up whether Dad chose cheaper materials and billed the church for the expensive ones, can you not lie?" He scrubbed a hand over his face. "Your dad said it was within code." "Code isn't the question," I said. "Honesty is." He blew out a breath. "If it comes down to it," he said, "I won't lie." It wasn't much, but it was a crack. I tried Kara next. She'd been the part-time church office manager before she left to spend more time with family, which is Christian for something went down. I DM'd her on Instagram from my new account. "Can we talk? Library, back table, tomorrow?" She replied with a single, thumbs up emoji, and a time. Kara showed up in a denim jacket with a baby on her hip and a look that said she hadn't slept since Jesus was a freshman. She slid into the chair, set down the baby carrier, and pressed a manila envelope under my notebook like we were in a spy movie. "I don't want drama," she said. "But I also don't want to feel sick every time I think about that office." What is it? I asked. Emails, she said. Me asking about weird transfers. Me being told to clean up entries. Me being told to backdate a receipt. Her mouth twisted. Your mom's handwriting is on a post-it attached to a deposit. It says route through consulting. I quit 2 weeks later. Did you sign an NDA? I asked, because every crime documentary has taught me at least one fancy question. She snorted. They tried. I didn't. I just left. She touched the baby's foot. I wanted to feel like a person again. I thanked her so many times it got embarrassing, then I scanned every page and sent them to my boring emails. Each upload felt like a brick in a wall I could finally stand behind. Step 4. Safe Adults. Ms. Washington introduced me to the district liaison, a woman named Tasha who wore sneakers with her blazer and didn't blink when I said the word homeless. She helped me fill out forms so I could get free lunch and waived fees for the AP tests my parents would have used as bragging rights. When I told her the rest, she did what good adults do, she neither freaked out nor told me to drop it. Be careful, she said. Document everything. Don't escalate until you have a plan. And if you feel unsafe, you call me, you call 988, you call 911. You're not in this alone. Every night after my diner shift, I added another layer. Spreadsheet tabs multiplied, invoices, transfers, texts, witnesses, talking points. Ryan pretended to be my mock jury, hitting me with the worst questions. Why now? Why should we trust you? Are you just a bitter teen? I practiced answers until they stopped sounding like apologies. When I slept, it was the heavy, dreamless kind that comes after you've run contingency drills in your head until the sun threatens to come up. I didn't post. Not yet. My parents were filling the internet with prayers and platitudes, and every time I felt my thumb hover over upload, I pictured their response: he's lashing out. He's unstable. And a younger, scarier picture, a slander suit I couldn't afford to defend. So I went old school. I printed a 19-page packet titled Notes on Stewardship Concerns I Know, thrilling title, I wanted it boring on purpose, and dropped a copy, unsigned, into the church office mail slot at 5 a.m. on a Tuesday. One went to the head of the regional denomination council. One to Elder Mark. One to 2 older couples who had quietly stopped attending after the renovation, a mystery I suddenly understood. By Wednesday, the whispers changed tone. At the diner, booth 3 went from pity to worry. Have you heard about the audit? Someone asked under her breath, and the word rang in the air like silverware on tile. Audit. That night, Mr. Lawson called my new number from a landline. You didn't get this from me, he said, but leadership is rattled. They scheduled a special meeting on stewardship for Sunday. Closed door. No live stream. I dragged a hand over my face. So they'll bury it. Maybe, he said. Or maybe this time it won't stay buried. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed again, an unknown number with a photo attachment. The picture was dark, grainy, and unmistakable, the fellowship hall ceiling, brown-stained and sagging, with 3 trash cans catching drips like sad little soldiers. The message under it was one line: BX200 failed after the storm. Insurance asking questions. I stared until the pixels swam. Rain had punched right through the lie. The cheaper sealant. The swapped materials. The no one will know. Somewhere across town, buckets were filling and quiet men in polo shirts were circling with clipboards. Somewhere on my parents' perfect kitchen island, a phone was lighting up with words like claim and liability and materials list. And for the first time since the night I laughed in the fellowship hall, I felt the ground tilt under them, not me. Their web wasn't just stretching, it was starting to snap. Sunday's closed-door meeting was about to be anything but. Sunday mornings used to mean ironed shirts, polished shoes, and my mom blasting praise music loud enough to rattle the windows while she curled her hair. This Sunday, I sat across the street in Ryan's Civic with a thermos of diner coffee and a manila folder fat enough to choke on. My parents were already inside, shaking hands, flashing their stage smiles. If you didn't know better, you'd think nothing was wrong. But I knew. And so did a growing handful of people. The fellowship hall was locked down for the special stewardship meeting. No live stream, no public agenda, just the inner circle. Perfect, I thought. That meant they expected silence. Which made it the best moment to make noise. At 10:45, when the meeting hit full stride, I sent my packet. Not to the church email, too easy for them to intercept. I blasted it to the denomination's regional office, every elder, and, most importantly, half the congregation via BCC. Subject line, for your eyes. Inside, scanned invoices, Kara's emails, Lawson's bank slips, Dad's note about the BX200 sealant, and the fresh photo of the ceiling leaks. Each page was watermarked with a single line: "The truth doesn't need permission." By 11:10, phones started buzzing. I couldn't see faces through the stained glass windows, but I could imagine it, the ripple effect of screens lighting up mid-prayer, heads bending, whispers spreading. The same whispers that once gutted me were now cutting the other way. Ryan refreshed his feed and let out a low whistle. "Dude. It's everywhere." The Facebook moms who'd flooded my parents' posts with hearts were suddenly hedging. "We're praying for clarity. I hope this isn't true." Others weren't hedging at all. "These documents are damning. Explanations needed." I leaned back in the passenger seat, heart pounding. I wasn't celebrating. Not yet. But for the first time, the lies weren't airtight. At 11:30, the church doors burst open. People filed out, faces red, some clutching papers they'd printed, others scrolling furiously. My mom's best friend, Renee, stormed to her car with a look that could blister paint. Behind her, Elder Mark spoke in hushed tones to Sister Amelia, who looked like she'd swallowed vinegar. Then came my parents. My dad's jaw was locked, my mom's smile stretched too wide. She clutched his arm like she could keep him upright by sheer force. But her eyes darted everywhere, quick, panicked, like she was checking how many people still believed. They didn't see me in the Civic, but I saw them. And in that moment, the weight shifted. The shame, the exile, the nights on Ryan's couch, it wasn't just mine anymore. It was theirs. That afternoon, my phone buzzed nonstop, messages from people who had ignored me for weeks. "Daniel, is this real? Can we talk? I'm so sorry I didn't believe you." Even Kara texted, "You dropped the hammer. Proud of you." But the one that hit hardest came at 4:12 p.m. from Dad's number. 3 words: "We need to talk." For 17 years, those words meant I was in trouble. Now, they sounded like desperation. And for the first time in my life, I realized I held the power to answer, or not. I didn't answer Dad's text. I let it sit there like a fly on the windowsill while the rest of Sunday unraveled in real time. The BCC wave did what waves do: it hit, receded, then came back harder. By evening, 3 elders had resigned pending review, the church Facebook page had quietly disabled comments, and someone replaced the usual Bible verse on the marquee with "service cancelled, building maintenance." Translation: the ceiling leak had become a metaphor with a plumbing problem. Ryan and I camped at the diner counter because Sharon kept refilling our mugs like she was sponsoring the rebellion. My new number buzzed nonstop. Some messages were apologies, the quick kind you send to feel better about yourself. Others were long, shaky paragraphs that started with "I should have asked questions" and ended with "tell me what you need." I screenshotted the ones that mattered and filed them away. It wasn't about the crowd now. It was about the record. At 6:02 p.m., a call from a number with a regional area code lit up my phone. I swallowed hard and answered. "This is Daniel." "Mr. Pierce," a woman said, crisp and professional, "this is Rebecca Hart with the Denominational Compliance Office. We received a packet of documents today that appear to relate to your congregation's finances. Can you confirm you sent them?" "I can." She paused, then lowered her voice like the line might have ears. "I can't discuss an ongoing review, but I will say the materials were substantial. If anyone pressures you to delete anything or sign statements, please notify us immediately." I thanked her, hung up, and stared at the neon pie sign humming over the counter like it was about to burst into song. There it was, validation without fanfare. Not a parade. Not revenge confetti. Just a steady voice saying, "We saw what you saw." By Monday, the insurance guys showed up at the church with clipboards and that look people get when they know they'll be sending follow-up emails forever. A janitor I knew from youth lock-ins texted me a picture of sample tubes labeled "Sealant, Fellowship Hall." Under it, everyone's whispering BX200. I could almost hear my dad swearing in the distance. School quieted in a weird way. The snickering went hushed, the stares changed flavors, less "what a mess" and more "what if he was right." Ms. Washington gave me a nod in the hallway that said, "Keep your footing." Even Kayla from chemistry did an orbit around my locker before blurting, "My aunt goes there. She's mad at leadership. Not you." Then she shoved a homemade brownie at me and fled, which is apparently how suburban teenagers do atonement. At lunch, I took a call from Mr. Lawson. "They're scrambling," he said. "Emergency restoration of trust meeting Thursday." The phrase "independent audit" has entered the chat. Are they blaming me? Privately, yes. Publicly, they're doing the humility two-step. He sighed. "Your mother. She cornered me in the parking lot. She asked why I'd turned on the family. I thought of her Facebook novella, all those hearts, all that curated grief. She still thinks I'm the problem, I said. Son, he said, voice rough, she thinks losing the illusion is the problem. At 4 p.m., my parents finally caught up to me. They were waiting outside the diner when my shift ended, standing side by side like a portrait that had learned how to glare. Mom's lipstick was perfect, Dad's tie was too tight. We need to talk, he said. I glanced at Sharon inside. She watched through the blinds with her arms crossed like an entire union in one woman. I stepped onto the sidewalk. Talk. Dad didn't bother with small talk. What you've done is slander. What you did is fraud, I said. But sure, let's compare nouns. Mom's voice took that soft, performative tremor. We know you're hurt. We know you're confused. People are filling your head with poison. But this, sending out private documents, this is illegal. It's not, I said. And the denomination seems to agree. For a second, the veneer cracked. Dad's eyes flashed, old fury showing through, then smoothed over. He took a breath, recalibrated. Here's what's going to happen, he said. You're going to delete everything you have. You're going to send an apology to leadership stating you misinterpreted routine decisions. In return, he reached into his jacket pocket and produced a thin white envelope. We'll help you get set up. Phone, apartment, money for school. A start. I stared at the envelope like it might bite. A bribe? That's the plan? A peace offering, Mom said quickly. A path back. We can bring you home if you just. Home? I laughed, ugly and loud. You kicked me out for telling the truth. Now you want to buy it back? Her hand trembled at her side. You're destroying our life's work. You did that when you started lying, I said. My voice came out quieter than I felt. I just stopped helping you hide it. Dad's jaw flexed. You think you're David slaying Goliath, he said. You're a child with a spreadsheet. Maybe, I said. But the rocks are landing. He thrust the envelope forward. Inside, a single-page agreement peeked out, lots of dense paragraphs and one bold header, mutual non-disparagement and confidentiality. My stomach rolled. You drew up a gag order, I said. For your kid. We consulted counsel, he said, chilly now. This is standard. For corporations, I said. Not families. Mom stepped closer, eyes shining too brightly. Please, she whispered. We can fix this. Think of your sister. Think of college. This will follow you. It'll follow you, too, I said. But unlike you, I can live with what I did. For a heartbeat, we just stood there, the three of us breathing the same hot August air and none of us really hearing it. Traffic hissed past. The diner door opened and closed behind me, releasing a puff of fryer heat and cinnamon. Dad tucked the envelope back into his jacket like a magician swallowing a trick gone wrong. If you continue, he said, there will be consequences. There already were, I said. You made sure of that. He turned without another word. Mom lingered, eyes searching my face for the son who used to jump when she said family meeting. She didn't find him. She squeezed my arm, a ghost of a hug, and followed my dad to the car. The taillights glowed red, then disappeared. Inside, Sharon slid a slice of pie in front of me I definitely hadn't ordered. On the house, she said, then added, don't sign a blessed thing. I wasn't going to, I said, but my hands were still shaking around the fork. That night, I forwarded the mutual non-disparagement draft to Rebecca Hart with the subject line pressure tactics. I attached a short note, they offered payment in exchange for silence. I declined. She replied 2 minutes later, noted. Please preserve all communications. On Thursday, the restoration of trust meeting drew a crowd big enough to violate fire code. I didn't go inside, I didn't need to. I sat on the hood of Ryan's Civic again and watched the doors like a tide chart. People went intense and came out louder. Snatches of sentences drifted over the lawn, independent firm, material variance, interim leadership. By sunset, a rumor had hardened into a fact. Dad was stepping back pending audit. Mom was taking time for family. The church would pursue reimbursement for improper expenditures. And the insurance company? They were continuing their investigation. Ryan whooped and thumped the roof. I didn't cheer. I exhaled. The kind where your bones let go. At 9:14 p.m., one more text rolled in, the perfect full circle boomerang. From Dad, if you love this family, stop. I typed, deleted, retyped. Finally, if you love this family, you would have stopped a long time ago. No reply. I put the phone face down, stared at the ceiling of Ryan's living room, and let a plan I'd been nursing since the porch light night click into its final place. Revenge wasn't a TikTok montage with a pop song. It was paperwork and patience and exactly timed releases. One last step remained, the one that made it undeniable, unretractable, public in the way truth should be. In the morning, I was going to make sure the people who had protected my parents' image over everything else felt what I felt on that curb, the cold edge of a locked door. And when it closed, it wouldn't be on me. The morning after the restoration of trust meeting, I woke up on Ryan's couch to the smell of coffee and the faint chatter of the news playing from his mom's kitchen TV. Not the church news, not Facebook gossip, local news. Allegations of financial misconduct within a prominent suburban church. I sat up so fast the blanket slid to the floor. The anchor's voice was calm, professional, almost bored, but the words were anything but: fraud investigation, independent audit, possible insurance claim denial due to negligence. A blurry clip of my dad shaking hands with the mayor at last year's ribbon cutting filled the screen. My mom was shown in the background, clipboard in hand, face caught mid-laugh. There it was. Public. Irrevocable. No way to spin it as teen rebellion now. By lunch, 3 more outlets had picked it up. One reporter even used a line straight from my anonymous packet: "The truth doesn't need permission." Watching it crawl across the bottom of the screen, I felt something inside me finally settle. That afternoon, Rebecca Hart from the denominational office called again. "The council has decided to suspend your father from leadership until the audit is complete. Your mother as well, from all financial responsibilities." I swallowed hard. So there. Out? For now. And depending on the findings, possibly permanently. Her voice softened. "You did the right thing, Daniel. Don't forget that." I thanked her and hung up, staring at the phone in my hand. For weeks it had been nothing but bad news, betrayals, and slander. Now, finally, it was carrying something different, proof that the truth had teeth. That night, I walked to the old park near my neighborhood. The swings creaked in the breeze, the basketball hoop still bent from when Ryan dunked too hard in 8th grade. From the bench, I could see my parents' house at the end of the cul-de-sac, porch light glowing just like it had the night they kicked me out. I didn't go up. I didn't need to. I pulled out my phone, opened a blank post, and typed. My parents kicked me out for telling the truth. They said I was rebellious, unstable, even dangerous. They said I was lying. But the truth doesn't need permission. The truth stands on its own. And now, so do I. I hit post and set the phone down beside me on the bench. For once, I didn't care about the notifications that would follow. I didn't need likes, or apologies, or even applause. I just needed peace. And sitting there under the buzzing street lamp, with no porch light waiting to flicker me inside, I realized I finally had it. I wasn't the one locked out anymore. They were. They kicked me out for telling the truth, now the truth kicked them out, too.